Early access seems to be both a blessing and a curse. It allows developers to get funds in for a product and help build the best creation possible with player feedback, however also has to contend with the knowledge that they're not going to be putting their best foot forward when it comes to what the audience will see, thanks to bugs and unpolished features. What's worse than that is that when it does eventually stumble its way into release day, it receives very little fanfare since everyone's already been able to play it for however long it's been in early access. That's the unfortunate fate for SpeedRunners, a game that was in early access between 2013 and 2016, and a game that I haven't heard anyone talking about since 2014. I personally think that that's a massive shame, because what surprised me more than the fact that SpeedRunners still has a small but dedicated audience is the fact that it's still really good. Hi, it's me, Massey. You already know who I am. Here today to give you a quick recommendation for a quick little game all about going quick while I very quickly try to build up a backlog of videos as Gear Xrd's release date very quickly approaches. SpeedRunners might be a game that's easy to describe, but when it's laid out in text it sounds about as engaging as trying to draw social skills from a 4chan poster. Platformer, elimination, racing game with a bit of randomization thrown in there with items. It's like Mario Kart if you took away all the cars, put stage hazards all over the track and gave Mario the personality trait of he goes fast. If I then told you that the physics were incredibly floaty, I think you'd rightfully look at me like I just tried to sell you a used condom, but what if I told you about this? Grappling hooks, the gaming equivalent of MSG since it makes any game suddenly go from somewhat underwhelming to downright gourmet. The grapple isn't just a simple swing button, it creates a fixed arc from your current distance to the ceiling, which allows you to not only conserve momentum but also create it with some clever timing and precision. Without this mechanic, I think the game would fall flat on its face without any joy to be had, since your character's naturally slow to accelerate and slow to turn. So you don't really need to be experienced to quickly understand just how much potential this mechanic has and feel its immediate benefits. Once you're a bit more familiar with the system, the grapple allows you to shift momentum with an incredible pace and take that used condom sat on the floor to breaking the sound barrier in every which direction faster than you can ask hold on, so this game's hard? No, not really. In terms of its mechanics, it's hyper pick up and play, where so long as somebody tells you the controls you can get going and have a good time. That however doesn't mean it's devoid of any depth. While random items like Mario Kart might sound like about as complex as the thought process of someone who's been lobotomized, it only helps to keep the skill floor low. But look up and you might start to realize that the skill ceiling is located somewhere near the International Space Station. Though most platformers naturally take the route of displaying just how hard it can be by throwing challenges at you that require you to have mastered pinpoint precision to pass, the multiplayer nature, combined with a clear intended audience being people that are mildly inebriated, made for levels that were designed closer to racetracks rather than platforming levels, with no task being particularly hard in isolation, and so the satisfaction instead becomes your ability to master every corner and manage your speed so that you don't create superhero blood art. So it's a good thing that, despite the characters being as floaty as they are, they combine that with slopes to preserve momentum and the grapple hook being able to both shift and build speed, to make for a game where the only thing stopping you from building up immense velocity is your ability to think about the opportunities that are available to you and see forward. You can get zooming incredibly fast, and since the game doesn't let you accelerate towards that breakneck pace naturally, there's a real catharsis to dropping around a corner and suddenly tripling your speed out of seemingly nowhere. It creates for a set of highs and lows in gameplay without the intervention of any random items, and when the items do intervene, they're toned down enough compared to most games that target the same audience that it doesn't detract significantly from the player who finds entertainment in mastering the systems. I guess it's a bit of a shame then that the camera is tied to every player at once, and while it's necessary for the game since falling behind means that you're forced off screen and promptly eliminated, it can make it hard to see ahead and makes it so that people that have invested a lot of time into knowing the map are able to keep ahead without much trouble. But those who aren't so familiar with the map aren't given enough foresight to react to the obstacles when they're the ones in the lead. Admittedly, I think this is actually a good thing when you're playing for fun with your friends, which is where I think that the game shines brightest, since it puts more ambiguity in place for the person ahead, making for more intense close battles to the death. But it does put a wall of knowledge in place that makes it particularly hard to keep up with those who know exactly what's coming at all times. However, when nobody's in the hundreds of hours of experience, I still think that it makes for an excellent party game or something to pick up and drop whilst you're waiting for your fifth to get on Discord for a ranked flex game. The simplistic mechanics, along with a shorter playtime and immediately understandable systems, in my opinion makes for a much better side game than something that's more involved than most party games, and due to the randomization of the items in the mix doesn't make for a game where you're constantly looking for the next big fat dub like it's a game of Trackmania or a Apex. I was hoping that I could find another racing game, but I don't really play them. I feel like this makes for a game that's got a bit too much randomization for many people to want to take it seriously, but there's still a lot of meat to its movement system for people that really want to put time into it to get a rich experience out of, which does admittedly come with a pretty big problem in the current year. Though very friendly, the people that are still playing in matchmaking display a skill gap so wide between beginner and experienced that it can make it feel pretty unengaging to play. Since the elimination style format means that you're more often than not going to be sitting there watching somebody else play, wondering why your character doesn't move like that. This can also end up leading to lobbies where 3 of you might actually be around the same skill level, but one player dominates so hard that the rest of you feel like you're getting fucked over like you're the side characters in an anime harem. Because the items aren't super impactful once you know how they all work, it can be hard to claw back any kind of control, with it feeling particularly shitty once you're at the back of the pack with no way to engage with the people ahead of you. Obviously this isn't a bad thing per se, and only really becomes a problem if you're looking at it through the very rare lens of somebody who's looking for a party game to play with random people. Though it does mean that you'll basically need people that you already know if you're looking for that more nonchalant experience, or head over to a public Discord. And with my understanding of the type of people that browse public Discords, unless interacting with groomers is your idea of fun, the latter isn't really an option. Thankfully, I think that there still is some value in the game if you don't want to engage with the wider player base. While it doesn't have a dedicated trial mode, it does have a practice mode that keeps a timer. And with the movement already being fairly tight with lots of room for both error and improvement, I think it's at the very least a place to enjoy the game at a comfortable pace in between getting your ass beat online. There's also a story mode that acts similarly to a Mario Kart Grand Prix, with some slight contextualization before each race that's surprisingly competent on its own. My father, while lost at sea, entered a state of euphoria. With nothing left to lose, nothing to gain, he finally achieved peace, only to have that peace taken away from him when he returned to society. I hope to bring the people of Speedopolis that peace, and take the fear away from them that they do not know they live with.
Chili dogs, yeah!
Yeah, the story's bare bones as anything, but acts as a nice place to get familiar with the game given that you don't have people to play with already and want to at the very least feel what it's like to engage in an equal game. And realistically, are you really expecting a proper story from your racing platformer? What do you want, a fucking visual novel alongside your Guilty Gear? Why do they keep doing this? You're going in for a game with super enjoyable movement with slightly less invasive than usual party game mechanics, and that's what you'll get out. I obviously don't think that it's necessarily a masterpiece, but I do think that it's extremely overlooked and seems to go undiscussed when people talk about trying to find a party game to play, even if there isn't anything outside of its very small set of mechanics that stand out. Even visually, while I'd say that it's pretty well defined in its style, I think there's much better examples of games out there that use the more simplistic vector-like graphics, but at least it's visually consistent and more importantly never gets in the way of the action. And while there's a whole lot of levels, and even more with a community workshop for PC, I find it hard to find a particular favourite or think of standout levels when the differences are geometry and a flat colour. And with the speed of the game getting as fast as it does, I think it's really hard to take in any of the environment, though there wouldn't really be much to take in the first place. Which makes my recommendation a bit more complicated than you should or shouldn't play this, because for as much as I've come to adore the movement system, if you're looking for anything more than just a fun party game with interesting momentum-based gameplay, SpeedRunners sure as shit ain't for you. If that does sound good to you though, rush over to Steam and slam it into your shopping cart like it's the toilet paper shortage all over again, so long as the price isn't too intimidating. £11, while I think it's worth that price, is a big ask for a game that's pretty limited in who it's going to appeal to if you share the somewhat flawed idea that you need to get an hour out for every pound that you invest in. So yes, SpeedRunners is still really good, but if you haven't picked it up, I'd recommend trying to get it on sale. Anything £7 and below would be an instant purchase for you and your mates. There's a lot of fun to be had here, and while I certainly wouldn't say that it lacks any depth, I think that the coin flip of whether or not that's a type of depth that you enjoy doesn't warrant it being purchased at its base asking price. That said, if this, and this looks like a good time to you, I'd definitely keep it on your radar, and put it on all your friends' radars as well. Now if you'll excuse me, I'm going to take some inspiration from this game and see how fast I can grapple my ceiling and slide down my stairs to get to KFC and spend the game's asking price and battery farm chicken. When I come back, I hope to see some of you swinging around too, and also for the game's price to go down a bit. Also, no, I still don't know how to end videos. Bye bye now!